If you make around 500K a year and still feel tense about money, you're not broken. You're in a structure that quietly drains high earners. Most people think a big salary equals safety, but high salary can be its own risk. You're paid for time, you're taxed the most, and you're pushed into fixed costs that don't scale down. And there's an invisible bill that keeps 300K to 800K earners stressed, even when they're doing well. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to spot the trap and pivot toward equity. Let's break down the core mismatch. Income feels like progress because it hits your bank account every 2 weeks. Net worth is quieter. It's what compounds. And compounding doesn't care how impressive your title is. It cares what you own, what you owe, and how long you can hold. Here's what actually happens to a lot of high earners. You build a life that's sized for your income, but your wealth never gets the chance to catch up. Because income is a stream. Wealth is a reservoir. If your stream is huge but your reservoir has a leak, you still end up thirsty. The first leak is taxes. Earned income is often the most expensive money you'll ever make. The more you earn, the more you're pushed into top brackets, and the less each additional dollar is worth to you after taxes. What this means is your raise is smaller than it looks on paper, but your lifestyle upgrades are priced in full retail. And that creates the second leak, the status tax stack. This isn't about being irresponsible. It's about the set of costs that come bundled with high-income environments. Housing in the right area, schools, childcare, a reliable car that matches the expectations of your clients or your peers, professional wardrobes, memberships, travel that goes from optional to that's just what we do, convenience spending because your schedule is packed. None of these line items feel outrageous by themselves, but together they behave like a second tax code. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Lifestyle creep isn't a habit. At high income, it becomes a contract. Your fixed costs harden. You lock in a bigger mortgage. You commit to tuition. You choose a neighborhood that requires a certain monthly burn to stay there comfortably. And once those are locked in, your future raises get pre-spent before they arrive. You don't feel richer. You feel like you're maintaining. That leads to the time debt cycle. When your lifestyle requires your paycheck requires your hours. So you work more to protect the income. But the hours you spend protecting income are the same hours you'd need to build ownership, learning how to evaluate deals, building a side business, negotiating for equity, or even just doing the patient work of investing consistently and rebalancing. The thing is, the trap isn't that you're busy. It's that your busyness is financially mandatory, and that creates fragility. When your burn rate is high and your wealth base is thin, one disruption shows the truth. Burnout, health issues, a layoff, a slowdown in your industry, a shift in compensation. You can have a great income and still have a small margin of safety because the monthly obligations are trained on the assumption that nothing goes wrong. Then there's the identity lock-in, and this part is subtle. If your self-image is tied to, "I've made it," spending starts to look like proof. You deserve the upgrades. You've worked hard. And you have. But when spending becomes identity, it quietly trades freedom for image. You're not buying things. You're buying the ability to keep being the person who buys those things. So the end result is predictable: high income, low investable surplus, and a net worth that doesn't compound fast enough to ever replace the paycheck. Once you see the structure, the solution isn't budgeting harder. It's changing what you get paid for. So let's talk about the escape hatch. Not make more money, not track every latte. The way out is shifting from being paid for time to being paid for ownership. Your new target is simple. Convert surplus income into assets you own that can grow without more hours from you. That can be broad market equity, real estate, a business, or equity compensation. The specific vehicle matters less than the principle. You want appreciation and cash flow that aren't capped by your calendar. Rule 1 is to lower your burn rate ceiling, not just your monthly expenses. High earners often optimize details while the overall lifestyle keeps expanding. You need a lifestyle design that stays stable as income rises. If you can make your normal life run on, say, your first chunk of income, Then every raise becomes optional capital, not a new obligation. Rule 2 is to create an equity budget first and make it automatic. Before you upgrade anything, decide the percentage of your take-home that buys ownership every month. Non-negotiable. Treated like payroll tax. Then lifestyle fills the remainder. This is how you stop raises from getting pre-spent. Rule 3 is optionality. Optionality is what lets you walk away from a bad deal, a bad employer, or a bad season. You build it with a cash buffer and low fixed costs. Not because cash is a great investment, but because time is. Cash buys you time to learn, time to wait, and time to say no. From there, you want a 2-lane plan. Lane 1 is passive market exposure. Broad, boring, consistent. This is your baseline wealth engine. Lane 2 is focused ownership upside. One thing you can build, buy, or earn into that has asymmetric return potential. That might be negotiating equity in your role. It might be building a small business that doesn't require you to be present for every dollar. It might be a concentrated skill that lets you enter deals other people don't see. Now, compensation reframing matters here. If you're in a career where equity is possible, you prioritize upside over just a higher base salary. You ask, what do I get if this grows? Not just, what do I get this year? If equity isn't on the table, you still build your own equity lane outside your job. And you manage risk like a strategist. You diversify income sources over time. You reduce dependence on one employer. You avoid the fragility of a single paycheck holding up a high-burn lifestyle. Think about it like a garden. High income is watering one plant every day. Equity is planting seeds. The goal isn't to water harder. The goal is to own more seeds that keep growing even when you step away. Here's the decision rule. If a purchase increases your fixed monthly burn, it needs to buy you time or equity. Otherwise, it's a trap. If you're serious about long-term growth, hit subscribe now and watch the next video on the fastest path from salary to ownership. And comment your income range plus the biggest status tax line item you want to cut first.